Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We are going to continue on with this week's theme of your favorites of 2024. Today we're going to be checking out the band The Smile, which, as far as I know, I'm not aware of. That name does not ring a bell. I have no idea of what kind of music we are in store for today, but let's just dive into it. We're going to look at the song Bending Hectic, that's a wild title. Let's see what's going on with The Smile. Very wide sounds. Microtonal stuff by using the tuning knob? Either that or it's a fretless guitar, but it sounded too smooth even for fretless.
I'm changing down the gears.
Speeding up, slowing down. It's the stretching and the squash, the compression and the release. And actually the tuning into into hitting the resonant note. Even that compression into release.
Coming to a bend now.
Although it's called Bending Hectic, maybe these are guitar bends.
The sheer drop down the Italian mountainside.
Oh, that was warm.
Time is kind of frozen, and you're gazing at the view. And I swear I'm seeing double. Gonna bring me down. No way, no how.
Are there two drummers? Or maybe a double tracking on the drum?
I'm letting go of the wheel.
Over here we have the hi-hat kick, I'm pretty sure, but I also hear the ride and snare rolling, and it kind of sounds like there's 3 sticks being dropped at the same time. I don't know. I guess it's possible. Some drummers just amaze me with how fast they can move around their kits. Maybe that's just it. The levity of this section. The strings, right? Oh, also the visuals of the music video are rising too, so maybe that's influenced my thoughts on this a little.
for me now. We've gone over the edge. If you got something to say, say it now. No one's gonna bring me down, no. No way, no how. I'm letting go of the wheel.
Ooh, tension. Dissonance? Car? He did say letting go of the wheel. Where's the compression? Where's the release?
Despite these things, dear,
Oh.
despite these arrows,
Okay.
I force myself to. Despite these things, dear, despite these arrows, I force myself to.
Okay. All right. That was a wild ride. You want to talk about songs that you just can't have any idea of where they're going, keep you on your toes? Yeah, I mean, that's one of those songs right there. And maybe if you know who the Smile are, maybe that's less left field. Maybe if you're already anticipating that type of noise, you're like, yeah, this is why I listen to the Smile, and you're waiting for that massive noisy wall to come in because that's their main sounds. I suppose that's different. My experience with this was I have no idea what I'm in store for. I'm hearing some interesting microtonal work, lots of cool bends and subtle pitch shifting, kind of a tense atmosphere at times, but overall something that I think is kind of palatable, and it tends to release into these light floating sections. So yeah, I mean that massive gazy wall of sound at the end. especially after the ridiculous string stuff going on there. I mean, that was just, that's an ending to a song right there. That is a way to surprise someone, where that someone is me, who doesn't always find being surprised a common thing in music. Outside of, like, avant-garde or esoteric stuff. This is very much in the wheelhouse of noise rock, and yet they still caught me off guard. I mean, props for that. So, why is the ending effective? We got to start at the beginning for that then. It's kind of a noisy song. It definitely plays with dissonance, primarily through the means of microtonality. I don't think a lot of the dissonance technically comes from unstable harmonies. We do kind of get into that realm by definition of ever growing pitches or ever descending pitches, but I think most of it is microtonality. And what that is, in the Western world, we have 12 notes. If you've ever seen a keyboard, you have your white keys and your black keys, and there's 7 white and 5 black per grouping of 12. And that is an octave. An octave is just this pitch and its sound wave. You multiply the sound wave by 2, or divide it by 2 if you want to go in the other direction. And that's an octave. And then how do you want to divide up the distance between those octaves? And in the Western world, we divide it into 12 parts. There's a couple of different ways to do this, and none of them are completely agreed upon. But for the most part, we have 12 notes that move in what we call half steps. C to C sharp is a half step. D to D sharp is a half step. You'll notice that there is no black key between E and F. That is also a half step, even though we don't have a sharp or a flat there. And a half step is just basically moving to the next key, whether it is a black or a white one. Now imagine instead of 12 notes, we divide the octave into 13, 18, 25, 37, as many as you want. Now we're getting into microtones. Imagine the sound between a C and a C sharp. That's what microtonal stuff is. And so when we hear pitches like this that start on a note and don't just jump to the next, but slide into it, we're catching all the microtones between those half steps. And that's why I said technically there is unstable harmony in here, because if you're playing a C on one string and your other string is ascending from a B into a C sharp, that B and C sharp are going to be half steps away from the C, and so you're going to have harmonic instability there and creating heavy tension. But we're hitting a lot of notes outside of the core 12 as well, which is creating its own types of harmonies, some really beautiful and resonant and consonant, and others dissonant, more so than some of the dissonant harmonies we can achieve with 12 tone, and sometimes less dissonant than what we can achieve with 12 tone. Microtonality is, I mean, it's basically untread ground. There are so few artists compared to the number of artists who use 12 tone doing microtonal stuff, especially in the mainstream world, which tends to use the Western 12 tone separation. But even within that world, like I said, you can divide it up as much as you want. If you want to go from 12 to 24 and just perfectly catch the halfway points of all the things on a piano, that's actually going to line up a little closer to the sounds we expect than if you're going to divide it into 35 and not land on any of the 12 that we have in Western music. So there's a lot of room to explore and do your own thing. Some of it is going to be quite a bit more dissonant than others. The Mercury Tree is a progressive band that uses microtonal divisions in ways that I find to be unpleasant to listen to. But then you have artists like Zayana Arrows, who works microtonally or microtonal music into beautiful chords that I've never heard in my life because they can't exist in 12 tone. Um, and so, like I said, there's just a lot of room to explore a lot of cool stuff. And we explore some of that here. Like I said, both more dissonance and more consonance. And I think that's pretty cool. To me, that is the core of the A section of this song. Technically, I'd say there's an ABA before we hit the outro, which would be a C, I guess. But generally, the first, like 4 or 5 minutes of this song is playing around with this bending idea. I don't know if they're bending the string. I don't know if they're using the tuning knobs to raise the pitch up and down. Maybe there's some other thing going on. Maybe it's all digital, you know? I hadn't even considered that, but you just play the guitar normally and then you digitally, well, no, because then you have to record each string individually. Dang, that would be annoying. It's probably not digital then. Well, maybe, I mean, this came out last year. Could you use AI to isolate a single pitch and then modulate just that one? That feels like a lot of work, though, for something you could do by hand a lot easier. Regardless, the end result, though, is a lot of the guitar work is strumming a chord, landing on a note, and then modulating that note up or down in pitch until you reach a peak. And it sounded like they always slid back into whatever a home tone would be. And what this does is it creates a chord progression and then rises in tension over time. It feels like the walls are closing in. It creates a lot of tension and then it releases it. And you go back to this feeling of normality, of home, of release, and also of uh, rest. All of that pressure has been removed. They do this over and over and over for several minutes across different types of chords, different chord progressions. The vocals, I think, work well consonantly with the chords that are being played on the guitar and bass underneath it. And it's just generally a cool effect that I think gets overdone but continues to achieve what it sets out to. The other side of this equation, though, is the vocals. It is the violin. It is the guitar in the second section. It's the consonant harmony that exists alongside this tension building guitar work. It almost feels like the straight man to the chaotic actor in a buddy comedy, where these melodic elements who are playing the lead melody really sit within consonant melody all the time. And it's what I think further embellishes on and strengthens that return to home feeling. Because usually these melodies dissipate when we have the tension. It allows that to be the focus. It allows the walls to close in. And then when we release, not only do we return back to a more familiar, stable harmony, but we have this melody that sits on top of it too. And I think that combination really helps to sell this tension release really well. And like I said, that comes from several instruments. We have the violins that show up on the outside. There are some moving ideas on the guitar that happens, and then we also have the lead vocals there. There is one other element of tension and release, and to me, it's just speed. We don't hear too much of it. It shows up at the beginning of the song for a little bit, and I don't really think comes back much after that. But where notes will start out small, or long, I should say, bing, 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 and then speed up. Bing, 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 bing. I think I've increased my pitch there too, and I think they did that also at times, changing the pitch and how fast we heard a pitch, but the general idea is speeding things up or slowing down the feeling of the song. Again, I think this was mostly at the beginning when we were still in more of a free time feeling before things got cemented down tempo wise. But again, it was another way of creating this feeling of compression and release. And I think it's really interesting that so much of the song focuses in on that. There is what I would call the B section, though. If we have the bending string tension thing first, then we have this weightless element. The song sort of takes off, goes for a very optimistic, positive feeling. There's no more of that bending, there's no more tension. It lasts for about 45 minutes or 45 seconds, maybe 1 minute. And it is just it's bliss compared to the tension and release of the other section. I really like this. I thought it was a cool way to explore something more positive and act as a nice counter to that constant tension we had from the A. But like I said, it doesn't last long and we go back into an A. In a sense, I would view this as a verse, chorus, verse, though I don't know if the lyrics support that. It was at this point, though, that the violins took over. The song pretty much cuts out entirely. The violins come in, and they start off with a rather stable chord, but it quickly devolves into something more tense, more unstable, more dissonant, and then more violins come in, and then more violins come in. The volume rises, the tension increases until it just sounds like a wall of pure noise, and you really don't think you can take any more, and yet it keeps building and rising and growing. And what comes after this? At this point, I was like, this is pure tension. We need the release. The whole song's been built upon this idea of tension and release. Where is it? And we kind of get it, right? The violins fade out slowly. They hold out a note. Volume kind of drifts off, but it's replaced with this massive bombastic electric guitar chord coming in really strong. I do think it is a release from that tension, but it is its own tension also. It's not super positive sounding. In fact, I'd say that the final couple of minutes of this track feel imposing, like a weight being pushed down. The compression rather than the walls coming in is the ceiling caving down, pushing weight upon your shoulders, but there's no release this time. This pushes its way through to the end of the song. There's no more of the back and forth. There's no more moments of relief. It's just crushing weight for the final 2 minutes of the song. And, geez, dude, it comes out of nowhere. It's impactful. It hits hard and it doesn't let up. As much as I didn't like the microtonal dissonant stuff coming in the beginning of the song, I was kind of craving it there at the end because at least that had moments of reprieve that aren't present anymore. The chord progression, I suppose, would be the only thing that provides any sort of levity. Not much, but something still. But the tone of everything, the size, the power of the song is unrelenting at this point. Bending Hectic is what the song's called. The song does feel kind of hectic, bouncing between two extremes constantly before landing on one, deciding to go all in. Not too sure about the bending element though. Like I said, I wonder if that has to do with the technique being used to create the song more so than anything about the song itself. But I think that's the end of my analysis, my understanding of the song musically, and now it's time to dive into some lyrics. Alright, the song looks like it is about an automobile accident. It says, I'm changing down the gears, I'm slamming on the brakes, a vintage soft top from the 60s. So we have a car, convertible, with a soft top, and he's changing down the gears. So he's trying to slow the car down, slamming on the brakes. He's got a manual. It says, we're coming to a bend now, skidding around the hairpin, a sheer drop down the Italian mountainside. So a hairpin is a sharp, usually 180 or plus turn, usually very narrow. Usually got to come down to pretty slow speed to get through a hairpin. And we're skidding around the hairpin, which means that we could be loss of traction on the road. He says there's a sheer drop down the Italian mountainside, and time is kind of frozen as you're gazing at the view, and I swear I'm seeing double. I don't know about the seeing double line, but it appears that the car has launched off this mountain. He didn't make the turn. He says time kind of freezes here. You're just gazing at the view. You're looking at the trees presumably below you. Pre-chorus says, no one's gonna bring me down. No way, no how. I'm letting go of the wheel. It might be as well. So this idea that there's nothing I can do here. I do think it's an interesting use of words. No one's going to bring me down as he is falling down off of the cliff. Gravity itself is bringing him down. But he says, I'm letting go of the wheel. Whatever happens, happens. The chorus says, I've got these slings, I've got these arrows, I'll force myself to turn. Interesting to bring this up immediately after saying he's going to let go of the wheel. But the idea of I got slings and arrows, is it just talking about how large of a difference there is between the tools he has and what he needs? Obviously, turning the wheel while you're falling off of a mountain isn't going to do anything, but it's the only thing you can do. Is that what he's saying here? It says the ground is coming for me now. We've gone over the edge. If you've got something to say it now. We do the pre-chorus again. No one's going to bring me down. I'm letting go of the wheel. But the chorus this time says, despite these slings and arrows, instead of all I've got is slings and arrows. He says, despite them, I'll force myself to turn. So again, I think it's an element of being unprepared, not having the correct tools for the job, but trying anyways at this point. The outro is just the word turn over and over and over. So it is. Here's where I think the lyrics, because remember when the song cut out and the violins were beginning to swell up, he had just said, I'm letting go of the wheel, which would be the pre-chorus leading into that final chorus where he says, despite these slings and arrows, I'll force myself to turn. So the rising strings would be the descent. Slow motion, again, as he states, the time kind of freezes. And then I guess the guitars coming in big at the end would be the crash. The constant weight of that would be the ever presence of this problem, if we want to call it that, the car tumbling, down, whatever, just not ending. It's a consistent problem. And maybe the song ending is the car finally coming to a rest. What comes after it isn't detailed in the song. We don't know what was left of this person, if they survived it or not. But there's a resilience to it. Despite not being able to do anything during this descent, they try their best. Despite the tools they have, they're still going to try something. But they do let go of the wheel, too. I have a tough time reconciling the pre-chorus saying, I'm letting go of the wheel, and 15 seconds later, the chorus saying, I will force myself to turn. Unless there is a different turn that we should be talking about here. Maybe it has nothing to do with turning the wheel. I don't know. That part goes a little bit above me. I am seeing in the annotations that this is performed by THOM Yorke. I think, is that right? I don't know anymore. Where did I see that information? Yes, THOM Yorke of Radiohead fame is a vocalist on this track. So that's kind of cool. I also see in the annotations that this song is about somebody struggling with suicide. And that some of the annotations for the lyrics said that this was about somebody wanting to commit suicide by driving off the side of a mountain. I don't get that from the lyrics, but it's quite possible this is a concept album, in which case that information is given to the audience in a different track. and it sets up these events here. But in isolation, this just seems like somebody who loses control around a mountain. Particularly, I thought they were racing with the idea of changing gears and slamming on brakes and even calling it a hairpin. I relate a lot of this to mountainside or even rally racing. Um, so I kind of figured it was just that racing down a mountain, misjudged a curve, and paid a price for it. But maybe it is about somebody struggling with taking their life, and maybe the rest of the album leans into that a little more. And maybe that would change some of the ways I view this song too. I view it as an event that's sort of isolated on itself, almost like an act of God, so to speak. That this character had no control over the situation, other than to maybe slow down a little bit more or not race at all. But you know, without drama, stories aren't really interesting, are they? This is a story of how somebody just did everything right, or this is a story how somebody stayed home and decided not to do that down mountain race. Like, those aren't interesting stories. There has to be tension. So, I don't know. Again, that might change the way I view the music. Knowing that this might be about someone struggling with suicide, and that actually might change the way I relate to some of the string bending or tuning knob changing, however they're achieving the slide up and slide down on the pitches. But these are just my thoughts. The smile, bending hectic. Let me know what you thought of it. Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you have your own interpretation of things. Put all that and any other thoughts you might have down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.